Buenos nachos, amigos. Let's talk about the Peter Joseph. I actually got some responses, so maybe some. Watch this one too. What is agorism? What is agorism? What is agorism? Why do I think might be an agorist? Why do I think he might be false flag? Okay. This guy's named. This is one of the guys. I just researched these peoples. This is one of the guys. Corbett report. John Corbett. He speaks more like. That's one thing that's characteristic is they do seem to have like sort of like Molyneux, where he at one point had very it was like much more logical sort of some ideas, and then he switched to all this crazy shit. And also this Corbett report guy, it seems like very trained and very sounds like he really knows what he's. Let's listen to him a little bit. This part here is going to talk about what his video is about. Is called solutions. So you go over the conspiracy. Okay, I'm going to stop doing his voice. You go the conspiracies, Corbett. What are the solutions? So here's all the solutions, which surprise, surprise. Also, in addition, like as far as what this guy, who I'm saying is like some kind of libertarian, basically that's one thing that he has in common with Peter Joseph, and the fact that he has all these left-wing, basically if he comes off as a left-winger, he has all these sort of approaches that are sort of opinions that you would expect to hear from that, war. One of the issues that the libertarians are pitching to the left-wingers, the hatred of capitalism. There's some of that in here. You could even just see them go down the line and like what their pitch is sort of is like why they should have basically like why we should not participate. That's all he's see. That's the message that Corbett shares that these other ones would share with Peter Joseph. That's why I think this is like part of a large organized propaganda effort. Now we're going to let's listen to break this up a little bit, listen to a little bit of what he says here. This is one of his solutions, which reminded me of Peter Joseph.
Economic collapse, hacking the matrix, cognitive liberty, monetary reform, 3D printing, all of these various ideas that we've covered over the years. Trying to end the Federal Reserve or whatever central bank.
See, very typical. This is what the right wing, libertarians. This is their pitch. This is all very typical. Everything he's saying, where if you just know like what they're, if you're familiar with like you go down the line of like the spying, the NSA spying, they're very concerned about supposedly war or something. Although I mean, if you look at the Koch brothers, they can basically control Congress right now. They control Trump. They basically own him, and they're basically getting everything they want. So like to say that they don't want war and don't want somehow the Syria thing, like that's not a concern to them, and say that Rex Tillerson being Secretary of State doesn't have something, what I mean, as far as like that's power, like whatever obviously this is like deep state. I accidentally used the word deep state. See, there's a deep state connection between the very, very wealthy. That's what I'm talking about, the deep state. Well, who's the deep state? Who controls the deep state? Who is the deep state? Well, it's these we blah 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 blah. No, it's the Koch brothers will end up controlling the deep state, right? And they'll spend up all the time putting out the or maybe the Koch brothers, these agencies within the government could actually, challenge their supremacy because they do control the entire Congress, both branches, and the presidency right now. And so everything that's happening in the world that America's doing is very much, they've won. The libertarians have won. That's why it's like, yeah, let's keep like pushing for random. Okay. But they talk about like stuff that is like different from, I lost my space.
Happens to be tyrannically perched over your own countries.
Just central banks, which, yeah, I think that's a point too. Something to do with the Fed, exactly what our approach to be. to the whole Fed and all this, and like the idea that, I mean, there's a vanguard of leftism that like Bernie's like part of. There's a you know, like anytime Bernie says something, Glenn Greenwald will say something, or significant. When these significant things happen, they'll be commented upon like what his actual agenda is, and like Noam Chomsky, and they'll all say like, well, this is like we like this part of his agenda, and maybe he should have voted this way on like That's why the people are coming up with all this, like they're just looking for shit. That's why I think this Peter Joseph video, it's just obviously it's just like, what is his beef with Bernie? I still don't get it. He's saying like somehow he has something different, right? Well, Bernie has a specific plan that is like also a specific plan of a lot of other people. So if you're like just dissing Bernie's plan and not saying we can somehow work within electoral politics and somehow that's fine. You don't believe, don't participate. But why are you? What is your agenda in somehow saying, oh, Bernie won't work? So you're saying people should not think that electoral politics could possibly change anything combined with other things? That's an absurd notion. That is ridiculous. That's why I'm saying I just can't, if I'm wrong, I just want to, let's hear him. And like I say, when I say this type of stuff, then I am blocked by Lee Camp. I'm like, I went on the Jimmy Dore show site, and a person came on and said it was a very good friend of both Lee Camp and Jimmy, and he talked to me back and forth, and then and I said, well, I just want to know if Lee Camp actually he's came up with this thing where he doesn't support Bernie's progressive agenda. Like Lee Camp and Peter Joseph, they seem to be like, they say they're right, like progressives like us, right? Right? Except every time you look at the show, it's all like these the stuff that not the basic economic populism, where you vote and that changes the system and it improves it for the common person, however that is. Now, this could go a long way. You could really vote for a lot of things, couldn't you? You could vote for Bezos not to have anything for some reason. Well, you wouldn't vote for him not to have anything, but I mean, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be a voting thing. But I'm saying you could like limit the power of these individuals. So to say that income inequality doesn't somehow have anything to do with the distribution of power in the world and like the way your resources are accessed is totally freaking ridiculous. And I saw a thing last night. I forget who said this, but she was saying, that the people really aren't just divided on the major issues like the guns and the minimum wage. Everyone wants to go up. All these Social Security. There's no disagreement on Social Security amongst the populace. All the big issues on war. There's no disagreement. There's no disagreement on any of these issues. So if we don't participate in the political process and try to take it over, we're just allowing the people's will, not to be. I mean, we have to make an attempt, right, to somehow achieve political power. That's what I'm saying. It's like that would seem like the obvious part of this equation, and the idea that, like, oh, you think that just like pulling a lever for blue? No, and we're not talking about just pulling the lever for blue. Everybody's getting involved. It's changing. It is changing, and that Peter Joseph is kind of gaslighting us about like nothing's changing. I mean, that's not the Peter Joseph voice. That's a James Corbett voice, but it's the same voice. It's the voice of crazy Bernie. Crazy Bernie. He doesn't get it. Bernie will never get economics and the fact that this and that.
Economy, rather than simply waving placards and asking the bankster-controlled government to end the bankster control over government, you can do something perhaps more.
As waving placards are just, but see, for some reason he's like, yeah, doesn't get into organizing in a progressive manner in the actual left and voting. That for some reason is totally. You would just never. Why would you ever do something like that? That'd be totally crazy.
Productive, and I discussed that in interview 928. Voluntary solutions to ending the Fed.
Voluntary solutions. See, this guy is definitely
different things.
They call it. That's the way they sell libertarianism to different people too. Is they chop it up into this and this and that and all kinds of different, you know, because they're trying to sell it to all kinds of different people. So like one person likes pop, one person likes privacy, one person likes no war. So they're gonna just like whatever they do, they're gonna tailor their message to these people, these types of leftist peoples, right? So they're gonna tailor it to them.
that we've covered over the years. All of these different ideas, solutions for economic collapse, hacking the matrix, cognitive liberty, monetary reform, 3D printing, all of these various ideas that we've covered over the years, just type the word solutions into the whatever.
I don't think I found the spot I was looking for.
If you are interested in trying to preserve your wealth in this increasingly unstable economic time, I did an eye-opener report a few years ago.
Of course,
collapsed.
Alternative currency. That's part of. We're gonna go to this. We're gonna go to good old Wikipedia now. That's another name for it. It's called left-wing market anarchism, something like that. So you would have like a left-wing free market. Is another word for agorism. Basically, the agorism was introduced at this libertarian conferences, CounterCon. So I guess this is in the early 70s, and it was proposed as a form of left-wing anarchism, but where you develop a counter economy. And of course, I did another video too. I don't know if I couldn't bring it up that clip right now. I gotta like collect the clips because there's Peter Joseph saying, you know, I think we have to go. It's with Pinchback, the recent thing he did with Thomas Pinchback, where he's saying we need to go outside of the economy and, you know, create another economy. That's what that's the whole agorism idea. And I'm getting a little confused now, but yeah. And it has all to do with the Austrian school. So this is very related to, even though he proposed it as a form of left-wing anarchism, it's obviously not a form of left-wing anarchism. It's like all related to Mises. And I mean, this is just a matter of how much you like, if you're like, I'm sort of a hobbyist when it comes to learning, like about, you know, it's just silly, the whole libertarian world, you know? So let me just think of what the title of the video again, so I can make sure I could address. Is it a false flag? Now, I wanted to talk about how maybe I should break this up into another video, but I wanted to talk about how my coming to terms with the fact that 9/11 was not in any way, I mean, was it a false flag or was that, I think it was the Saudi people, right? I'm pretty sure it was Saudis. There were planes. There were no bombs. In terms of like the 9/11 truthers, where they say that it had to be wired from the inside. I mean, come on, man, it doesn't. Then I started to look into them and I just started to see like, I mean, the more you see of right-wing propaganda, the more we realize how much there is of it. It's just an endless, like long, you know, like literally everybody get red pilled or something. They'll start out, is this and that. And then now like Diamond and Z, well, come on the team. You know, you think they're not like making like a couple $100,000 a year each? I mean, you know, whatever. It really isn't that hard. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to buy me out, you know, for like a man, just to live like a freaking human. But then, yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, that's what I mean, I don't have the smoking gun as far as like someone coming back and say like, oh, I did this because yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly, because I was somehow paid by the Koch brothers, or I don't know if you could, because you would appear like a total fraud. So maybe people at that point really just, no one would actually, of any substance would actually, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying is going on, but just that Peter Joseph, the fact that he's coming out, you know, against Bernie Sanders reforms just doesn't make sense to me. And it just sounds like much more similar to, just like I've seen the pattern over and over. That's why, he might be just basically the false flag that he was flying would basically be that I'm a leftist, when he's basically just like a leftist. I mean, that's a question. What it boils down to, I think I'll leave it at this. What it boils down to is, can you be, with us? He's just not with us. He's not a leftist if you don't believe that you should vote and try to, take the political power. If you don't want the left to achieve political power, I mean, maybe wouldn't say he's a leftist. He says he's not left or he's not right. But obviously, if he's not going to be voting for us or helping us get votes on the Bernie side of the equation, I don't call that neutral. I mean, I just don't see that as neutral. I see that as, and that's, I'll discuss too, the fact I've seen him throw this Koch brothers line out about 4 times now, where he said we should just let the Koch brothers run everything because, and at one point he's just like kind of like, oh, well, now we have a consistency problem. We have a market system. We just need to not have, I mean, what are you talking about? We just like not have a market system. Well, the only way, what he said is, somebody's going to have to go outside the grid and do something and create something outside the grid. Like I say, it just sounds like the closest thing I can come up with is agorism, But obviously, watch that video. Please watch his video critically. That's what this is all about, is his critique of Bernie Sanders' income inequality town hall. And gosh, it would be nice to have more than 1 subscriber. Okay.